Welcome to the sleep hours. Tonight, I'm not here with a story, but with a harsh reality. If you're listening to this, maybe today felt a little quiet. Maybe not bad, not overwhelming, just quiet. Maybe you've been thinking more than usual, not in a heavy way, just in a reflective way. This isn't a story. There's no big lesson waiting at the end. It's just a moment to sit with your thoughts without judging them. A space where you don't have to prove anything, fix anything, or rush toward anything. You don't have to be fully certain about your life right now. You don't have to feel completely understood. You don't even have to know where you're going. For the next little while, just let yourself be here. If you feel a little alone, that's okay. If you feel calm, that's okay too. If you feel somewhere in between, that's perfectly human. Take a slow breath. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just growing. Let's sit with that tonight. Sometimes I sit with myself and realize I don't actually feel sad. I just feel alone. And there's a difference. It's not the kind of alone that screams or demands attention. It's quiet, almost polite. It just sits beside me, and I've stopped trying to push it away. There was a time when I thought feeling alone meant something was wrong with me, like I was missing something everyone else had, like I skipped a chapter in life that taught people how to belong. But lately, I've been thinking differently. Maybe feeling alone isn't a flaw. Maybe it's just awareness. Awareness that I'm growing, that I'm changing, that I don't fit into places I used to force myself into. And that's not tragic. That's honest. I walk outside sometimes and notice small things most people probably ignore. The way light falls on buildings in the evening. The sound of someone laughing from far away. The comfort of holding something warm in my hands. In those moments, I don't feel empty. I feel alive. Isn't that strange? How you can feel alone and still feel grateful at the same time. I used to think those two emotions couldn't exist together, that if you were alone, you had to be miserable. But I'm learning that life is layered. You can miss people and still love your solitude. You can want connection and still enjoy your own company. You can feel lost and still trust that you're exactly where you need to be. There are nights when I think about who I used to be. More anxious, more desperate to be understood. More afraid of silence. Now silence feels different. It doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to actually hear myself. And honestly, I like who I am when I'm alone. I notice how deeply I think, how carefully I observe, how intensely I feel ordinary moments. Maybe loneliness sharpens you. Maybe it makes you more aware of what matters. I've started appreciating things I never paid attention to before. Slow mornings. Finishing a workout even when I didn't want to start. Learning something new just because I can. Praying quietly and feeling grounded again. There's something powerful about building yourself in private. No applause, no audience, just you choosing to become better. Sometimes I wonder if this phase of my life is preparation, like I'm being shaped quietly, strengthened internally, taught how to stand without leaning too heavily on anyone. And if that's true, then maybe this feeling isn't here to hurt me. Maybe it's here to train me, to make me comfortable in my own presence. Because if you can sit alone with your thoughts and not run from them, that's growth. I still want love. I still want deep connection. I still want people who understand the parts of me I don't show often. But I'm no longer willing to abandon myself just to avoid feeling alone. That's the difference. I choose myself now, and somehow that feels peaceful, even beautiful. I used to rush through my own life, always waiting for the next thing, the next message, the next person, the next version of myself, as if the present moment wasn't enough. And maybe that's why I felt so lost, because I was never really here. Now, when I feel that quiet sense of being alone, I don't panic. I pause. I ask myself simple questions. What do I actually need right now? Not what looks good, not what sounds impressive, just what feels right. Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it's movement. Sometimes it's turning off my phone and sitting with my thoughts. I've realized that feeling alone doesn't mean I have no one. It just means I'm learning how to be my own anchor. There's a kind of strength in that. Not loud strength, not the kind that announces itself, but steady strength, the kind that keeps showing up. There are days I still doubt myself, days when I wonder if I'm behind, if everyone else has figured life out except me, if I'm moving too slowly. But then I remember, growth isn't a race. It's quiet. It's personal. It's invisible most of the time. No one sees the discipline. No one sees the inner battles. No one sees the nights you choose not to give up, but you see it, and that matters. I think we underestimate how beautiful it is to be rebuilding yourself, to wake up and decide, even in the smallest way, that you're going to try again. That's not weakness. That's courage. There's something strangely comforting about realizing you don't have everything figured out. It means there's still more to discover, more to learn, more to experience. I don't want a perfect life anymore. I just want a meaningful one. I want to notice the way the sky changes colors, the way a good conversation can shift your entire mood, the way discipline slowly builds confidence, the way faith quietly stabilizes your heart. Even this feeling of being slightly lost is teaching me. It's teaching me patience, depth, and how to sit in uncertainty without collapsing. Maybe that's the blessing hidden inside it. Because if I never felt alone, I would never truly know myself. I would never learn what I value, what I tolerate, what I refuse to accept anymore. There's clarity in solitude, and clarity changes everything. I don't see this phase as something to escape anymore. I see it as something to honor, a chapter where I'm becoming softer and stronger at the same time. Maybe one day I'll look back at this version of me and feel proud. Proud that I didn't numb myself. Proud that I didn't pretend to be someone else. Proud that I stayed curious, stayed hopeful, stayed in love with life even when it felt uncertain. And honestly, that feels like enough. There's something quiet about this stage of my life. Not dramatic, not chaotic, just quiet. And I think I used to be afraid of quiet because I confused it with emptiness. But quiet isn't empty. Quiet is space. Space to notice things. Space to grow without pressure. Space to become without performing. I don't feel surrounded all the time, and I don't always feel understood, but I feel aware. Aware of my thoughts, aware of my patterns, aware of the parts of me that are still healing and the parts that are finally strong. And that awareness feels like progress. I've started realizing that being alone is different from being unloved. I am loved, maybe not always in the exact way I expect or at the exact time I want. But love exists in my life, in small gestures, in prayers made quietly for me, in people who check in unexpectedly. And even when no one is physically there, I am still supported by the lessons I've learned, the faith I hold on to, and the resilience I've built. That counts for something. And that counts for a lot, actually. There was a version of me who thought happiness meant constant excitement, constant connection, constant validation. But now I see that real contentment is softer. It's drinking water when you're thirsty and feeling grateful for it. It's completing something you promised yourself you would do. It's noticing that you handled a situation better than you would have a year ago. Growth isn't loud, it's subtle. It shows up in the way you react differently. in the way you choose peace over proving a point, in the way you let go without making a scene. Sometimes I still feel unsure about where I'm heading. I don't have every answer. I don't know exactly how everything will unfold. But I'm no longer terrified of that. There's a strange beauty in not knowing. It means life is still unfolding. It means I haven't reached the end of my story. And maybe this feeling of being slightly lost is just the space between who I was and who I'm becoming. I've also learned to appreciate my own company in a way I never did before. I enjoy my thoughts more. I trust my decisions more. I don't chase noise the way I used to. I don't force conversations just to fill silence. If something doesn't align, I step back. Not out of ego, but out of respect for myself. And that shift alone has changed everything. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, you stop feeling completely alone. There are moments when I look around and think, life is actually beautiful. Not perfect, not easy, but beautiful. The fact that I get to experience it at all is something I don't take lightly anymore. The ups, the confusion, the solitude, the growth, the discipline, the setbacks, the small victories. It's all part of being alive. And I don't want to rush through it just to reach some imaginary destination where everything finally makes sense. Maybe this is what maturity feels like. Not having it all together, but no longer falling apart over it. Accepting that some days will feel heavier, and some days will feel light, and both are valid. Understanding that loneliness can visit without being permanent. Trusting that connection will come without forcing it. And choosing, again and again, to stay open to life. I don't think I'm lost anymore. I think I'm just in between chapters. And instead of fearing the space between, I'm learning to sit in it, to breathe in it, to grow in it. And somehow, in this quiet in-between, I feel more like myself than ever before. There's a quiet confidence growing in me lately. Not the kind that needs to be seen, not the kind that proves anything to anyone, but the kind that simply exists. The kind that comes from surviving your own overthinking, from facing your own insecurities without running, from sitting in moments where you feel slightly disconnected and choosing not to label it as failure. I used to think confidence meant being sure about everything. Now I think it just means trusting yourself even when you're unsure. I've stopped romanticizing the idea that life is supposed to feel full all the time. Full of people, full of plans, full of constant excitement. That's exhausting. Real life has pauses. It has stillness. It has seasons where things feel slower. And maybe this is one of those seasons for me. Not empty, just slower. And there's something beautiful about slowing down enough to actually notice who you are becoming. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at small, random things. A memory that doesn't hurt anymore. A goal I'm quietly working toward. The realization that I reacted calmly in a situation that would have once ruined my entire day. These are small victories, but they matter. They remind me that I am evolving, even if it's not visible to the world. There's also a different relationship I have with my thoughts now. I don't believe every negative voice immediately. I don't accept every doubt as truth. I question it. I challenge it. I remind myself of how far I've come. That alone has changed the way I experience solitude. It no longer feels like I'm trapped with my mind. It feels like I'm learning it. And maybe that's what this phase really is. Learning yourself. Understanding your triggers. Noticing your strengths. Seeing where you still need patience. It's uncomfortable sometimes, yes, but it's honest work. It's the kind of work that builds something solid inside you. I don't think I'm searching for people to fill a void anymore. I'm searching for alignment, for conversations that feel natural, for connections that don't require me to shrink or exaggerate myself. And until that arrives, I'm okay. Because I'm not empty. I'm growing. There's something freeing about realizing that you don't need constant validation to feel worthy. You don't need to be surrounded all the time to feel significant. You don't need to prove your progress to anyone. Your journey can be quiet. Your growth can be private. Your peace can be subtle. I still have moments of doubt. I still have days where I feel slightly misplaced. But they don't consume me the way they used to. They pass. And when they pass, I'm still here. Still trying. Still choosing to see beauty in ordinary days. Maybe that's what loving life really is. Not pretending everything is perfect, but choosing to appreciate it anyway. Choosing to notice the details. Choosing to stay soft even after disappointment. Choosing to believe that this in-between phase is shaping something meaningful. I don't feel finished. I don't feel completely certain. But I do feel where I feel present. I feel like I'm building something internal that no one can take away from me. And for the first time in a long time, that feels steady. I think what surprises me the most is how gentle I've become with myself. I used to be my own harshest critic. Every mistake felt like proof that I wasn't good enough. Every delay felt like failure. Every setback felt permanent. But somewhere along the way, I stopped speaking to myself like an enemy. I started speaking to myself like someone I care about. And that changed everything, because when you stop attacking yourself, you stop feeling like you're constantly losing. There's still ambition in me. There's still desire. I still want to build, to grow, to experience more. But it's no longer fueled by fear. It's fueled by curiosity. I want to see how far I can go, not because I'm trying to outrun loneliness, but because I genuinely love becoming better. There's a big difference between chasing worth and building it quietly. Sometimes I look at my life and realize it doesn't look loud or dramatic. It's simple, structured, focused. There are routines, there are goals, there are moments of reflection. And maybe that simplicity is something I once would have called boring. Now I call it stable. And stability feels like peace. I've also learned that not everyone will understand this phase of me. Some people prefer the version that was constantly available, constantly explaining, constantly overextending. But growth changes accessibility. When you start protecting your energy, your circle shifts, and that can feel isolating at first. But it's also necessary, because you're not meant to stay the same just to keep others comfortable. There's a quiet joy in becoming selective. Selective with your time, selective with your words, selective with your emotional investment. Not cold, not distant, just intentional. And intention creates clarity. I don't give pieces of myself away carelessly anymore. I don't beg for understanding. I don't force presence where there's hesitation. And in that restraint, I've found strength. I still feel alone sometimes, but it doesn't scare me. It doesn't spiral me into self-doubt the way it used to. It feels more like a reminder that I am responsible for my own foundation, that I can sit in a room by myself and feel calm, that I can wake up and motivate myself, that I can comfort myself when things feel uncertain. There's power in that kind of self-reliance. Not independence that rejects others, but independence that doesn't collapse without them. I think we grow up believing that fulfillment always comes from outside of us, from relationships, from recognition, from achievements. And those things are beautiful. They matter. But they aren't the whole picture. There's another kind of fulfillment that comes from knowing yourself deeply, from aligning your actions with your values, from being proud of the way you handle life's quiet tests. I'm proud of myself for not giving up on softness, for not becoming bitter, for not letting temporary loneliness convince me that life isn't worth loving. Because it is, even in its uncertainty, even in its unanswered questions. There's something sacred about waking up every day and choosing hope without a guarantee, choosing discipline without applause, choosing gratitude without perfection. Maybe this is what strength looks like now. Not loud declarations, not dramatic breakthroughs, just steady presence, consistent effort, quiet belief. And honestly, I think that's more powerful than anything else. I've come to understand that life doesn't always need to feel extraordinary to be meaningful. There were years when I thought I was waiting for something big to happen, some breakthrough, some moment that would finally make everything make sense. But now I see that most of life is made up of ordinary days, and those ordinary days are not empty. They are building something quietly. There's a certain beauty in waking up without chaos, in having routines that shape you, in knowing that progress is happening even if it's invisible. I don't need constant highs anymore. I don't need emotional extremes to feel alive. There's something deeply grounding about stability, about knowing that even if today feels slightly uncertain, I will handle it the best way I can. I still think about the future. I still imagine the kind of life I want to build, the kind of connections I want to experience, the kind of person I want to become. But I'm no longer desperate for it to arrive immediately. I trust the timing more than I used to. I trust that what is meant for me won't require me to betray myself to receive it. That trust has softened me. I don't chase as hard. I don't panic as quickly. I don't overinterpret every silence. Instead, I observe, I adjust, I continue. There's a quiet maturity in realizing that not every feeling needs to be solved. Some feelings just need to be felt. The slight sense of being alone sometimes isn't a crisis. It's a reminder that I am responsible for nurturing my own inner world. And I've started doing that more intentionally, protecting my thoughts, feeding my mind with things that strengthen it, taking care of my body, strengthening my faith, building habits that future me will be grateful for. I don't think I'm lost anymore. I think I'm unfolding. And unfolding is not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't always come with applause. It happens slowly, quietly, internally. There are still moments when I wish things were clearer, when I wish certain prayers had immediate answers, when I wish certain people understood me more deeply. But even in those moments, I don't feel hopeless. I feel patient. And patience is something I never thought I'd master. I've learned that loneliness can exist without bitterness. It can exist without self-pity. It can simply be a season where you are being refined, where your standards rise, where your heart strengthens, where your mind becomes clearer. And I'm grateful for that refinement because it has made me more intentional, more aware, more grounded. I love life in a quieter way now, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the way you love something you deeply respect. I respect the process. I respect the growth. I respect the lessons hidden inside ordinary days. I don't need to rush toward completion anymore. I don't need to prove that I'm thriving. I just need to keep moving with sincerity. And I am. Even on the days when I feel slightly alone. Even on the days when I feel in between. Even on the days when I'm not entirely sure what's next. I'm still here. Still building. Still believing. And somehow that feels more than enough. I don't think peace arrives all at once. I think it settles in slowly, almost unnoticed. One day you realize you're not as reactive as you used to be. Another day you notice that silence doesn't bother you anymore. Then one evening you sit with yourself and feel steady, not excited, not numb, just steady, and that's when it hits you. You've changed. I used to believe that being found meant being seen by others. Now I think it mostly means being seen by yourself, knowing your limits, knowing your values, knowing when to push forward and when to rest. That kind of understanding doesn't come from crowds or constant connection. It comes from time spent alone, paying attention. There's something comforting about knowing I don't need to escape my own life. I don't need to distract myself from who I am or where I am. Even when things feel uncertain, I trust myself to navigate them. That trust didn't come from everything going right. It came from surviving what didn't. I've learned that loneliness isn't always asking to be removed. Sometimes it's asking to be listened to slow you down, to help you notice what you've been ignoring. And when you stop fighting it, it loses its sharp edges. It becomes softer, more manageable, almost meaningful. I love life in its small, ordinary forms. I love routine mornings and quiet nights. I love progress that only I can see. I love becoming someone who doesn't need to rush toward validation, someone who can sit with unanswered questions and still feel okay. Someone who understands that not everything has to make sense right now. There's a calm confidence in accepting that you are a work in progress, not incomplete, just in motion. And motion doesn't need an audience. It just needs direction. I don't know exactly where this path leads, but I know I'm walking it with intention, with honesty, with patience. And that matters more than certainty. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't have to be surrounded to feel whole. You don't have to be understood by everyone to trust yourself. You don't have to have everything figured out to keep going. Sometimes being alone is simply the space where you learn how to stand on your own without becoming hard. And I think that's a gift. So if this moment feels quiet, let it be quiet. If it feels in between, let it be in between. You're not behind. You're not missing life. You're living it, carefully, thoughtfully, sincerely. And that's, sometimes in life, is enough. And maybe that's all this moment needed to be. Not a transformation, not a breakthrough, just awareness, just honesty, just a quiet reminder that you're doing better than you think. Life doesn't have to feel loud to be meaningful. It doesn't have to feel crowded to be full. Sometimes, the most important growth happens in silence, in stillness, in the in-between spaces no one else sees. If you felt a little alone tonight, I hope it felt lighter by the end. Not erased, just understood. You're allowed to be a work in progress. You're allowed to move slowly. You're allowed to love life even when it feels uncertain. Stay gentle with yourself. And wherever you are right now, keep going. You're unfolding in ways you can't fully see yet. And with that, I'll let the night hold you. Good night, everyone.